Hello everyone. In this issue, we would like to share with you some little-known surprises about Salvador Dali, one of the 20th century's most famous geniuses. He is known for his melted clocks and long-legged elephants, but his life hides an amazing story that is far beyond our imagination. First, let's take a brief look back at Dali's life. Born in Figueras, Spain, in 1904, Dali showed extraordinary artistic talent from an early age. He studied at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Madrid and later became a central figure in the Surrealist movement in Paris. Today, however, I would like to go deeper than the superficial history that you are familiar with, and get to the true face of Dali, which is much more surprising. Chapter 1. The Other Dali. On August 12, 1901, a boy was born in Figueras, Spain. His name was Salvador Dali. However, this child is not the Dali we know. He died of gastroenteritis at the age of 21 months. The grief of the parents over the loss of their beloved son was immeasurable. On May 11, 1904, a new baby boy was born, and his parents again gave him the name, Salvador Dali. This was more than a coincidence or a memorial to their lost child. The young Dali was raised as if he were the reincarnation of his late brother. A portrait of his late brother always hung in his parents' bedroom, and every Sunday the family went to visit his grave. There, my mother repeatedly told me, "Your brother was much better than you." This unique environment cast a deep shadow over the young Dali's mind. In his autobiography, he later wrote, "I am myself and I am myself at the same time. I had to be myself and my brother at the same time. I was forced to live a double life." This experience would have a decisive influence on Dali's later art. The motifs of double images and shadows, which appear frequently in his work, are directly linked to this childhood trauma. For example, in his 1929 work, Memories Fixation, two heads are depicted reflecting each other, which could be interpreted as an allusion to the existence of the other Dali. Dali also sometimes claimed his birthday as August 12, his actual birthday is May 11. This was the birthday of his deceased brother, indicating that Dali was subconsciously trying to take on his brother's presence. Chapter 2. Passion for Mathematics and Science. Although Dali was known as a mad genius, he was actually an extremely logical and scientific thinker. In particular, he was deeply interested in the revolutionary discoveries of modern science, such as quantum mechanics, the double helix structure of DNA, and Einstein's theory of relativity. Melancholy in the Atomic Age, published in 1945, was created shortly after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In this painting, the motif of the splitting of the atomic nucleus simultaneously expresses the destructive power and beauty of science. The huge cube floating in the center represents the immeasurable energy of nuclear power, while the fragments scattered around it symbolize nuclear fission. Even more interesting is Dali's attempt to incorporate the mathematical concept of the four-dimensional hypercube, tesseract, into his art. In Hypercubic Christ, from 1954, the crucified Christ is depicted as if he existed in four-dimensional space. This was an innovative attempt to use mathematical concepts to express the transcendence of God, which cannot be expressed in the usual three dimensions. Dali also had a strong interest in the golden ratio, 1 to 1.618. Dali also had a strong interest in the golden ratio, 1 to 1.618. In many of his works, he adopted the golden ratio as the basis of composition and even incorporated a spiral structure, based on the Fibonacci sequence. For example, the clock in Memories Adhesion is arranged according to the golden ratio. Dali also showed a strong interest in optics and optical illusions. In the Mae West series, he used a novel technique to shape the face of actress Mae West through the skillful placement of furniture and architectural elements. This is an artistic application of the Gestalt psychological principle that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. Chapter 3. An Unusual Obsession with Cooking. In 1973, Dali published an unprecedented recipe book entitled Les Diners de Gala. This book is not just a cookbook. It was a fusion of art and cuisine, a veritable surrealist feast. The book opens with the following warning. This book is not for weight-conscious people. Our only recipe for weight loss is to eat as much as possible between meals, with less talking. Among the recipes are such unimaginable dishes as blue lobster cocktail, lamb brains in champagne, and raw oysters wrapped in fruit jelly. Particularly shocking is the chapter on aphrodisiac dishes, where sensual dishes such as soup made entirely of shrimp heads, and sea urchin and caviar mousse, are on display. Dali also owned his own restaurant, Restaurant Gala. A meal here was more than just a meal, it was a true culinary art experience. The tables were crawling with live ants, the seats were covered with rabbit fur, and the waiters wore silver gloves. The menu changed daily, dictated by the mood of the day and artistic inspiration. His personal attention to food was also unusual. For example, soup had to be served on a custom-made plate lined with 12 different types of shells, and bread had to be cut into octagonal slices. He also liked a unique dessert combining caviar and chocolate, which he called the sweet taste of death. Chapter 4. Unusual sleep habits and creativity. One of the sources of Dali's creativity was his unique sleeping method. Called slumber with a key, this method went as follows. First, sit in an armchair and hold a heavy brass key in your left hand. A metal plate is placed on the floor to the left of the chair. Then, he waits for a doze and a slight sleep. Just before entering the full sleep state, the hand relaxes and the key falls on the plate, and the sound wakes me up. This takes only a few minutes, sometimes only a few seconds. Dali explains this method as, it is in the momentary dream, between the conscious and the unconscious, that the purest creativity resides. In fact, it is said that the ideas for many of his works were obtained during this brief sleep. For example, the image of the melted clock in his masterpiece, Memory's Fixation, is said to have come to him during this microsleep. Dali's normal sleep cycle was also extremely unusual. He was a typical nocturnal person, often spending several days in his studio working without sleep. Afterwards, he would sometimes fall into a coma-like sleep of 30 hours or more. This irregular rhythm of life is thought to have influenced the themes of time distortion and the blurring of the boundaries between reality and dreams seen in his work. It is interesting to note that Dali actively incorporated this irregular sleep as a necessary condition for creative madness. He stated that normal sleep is for ordinary people, and by deliberately disrupting the rhythms of sleep, he was attempting to access deeper creativity. Chapter 5. Unexpected relationship with Antoni Gaudí. In 1914, at the age of 10, Dali and his family visited Barcelona, where he had the opportunity to see Gaudí's studio. This experience had a decisive influence on the young Dali's view of art. At the time, Gaudí himself was giving instructions to the workers on the construction site of the Sagrada Familia. Dali later recalled the scene. Gaudí's architecture is the construction of a stone. Gaudí's architecture was like a dream made of stone. His dislike of straight lines and his love of natural curves took deep root in me. In particular, the melting, organic forms of the Sagrada Familia had a profound influence on Dali's later work. The soft clocks and distorted human forms in his masterpieces show clear similarities to the fluid curves found in Gaudí's architecture. In fact, Dali himself had a strong interest in architecture. In designing the Salvador Dali Museum in Florida, which began in 1941, he worked closely with the architect to ensure that every detail reflected his vision. The museum's distinctive curved glass dome and organically shaped window frames clearly show the influence of Gaudí. Gaudí was my greatest teacher, Dali said in his later years. Through his architecture, he taught me how to make the impossible possible. It was the very essence of my art, to transcend reality and yet still be grounded in it. Even more interesting are the similarities between Dali and Gaudí. Both artists have a strong Catalan regional identity, yet their art has acquired universal value. Both also drew strong inspiration from natural forms and reinterpreted them in their own unique ways. The natural forms that Gaudí incorporated into his architecture can be seen as a precursor to the surrealistic images that Dali expressed in his paintings. These are just a few of the unknown aspects of Dali's artistic genius. He had the precision of a mathematician, the inquisitiveness of a scientist, the sensitivity of a chef, and the grasp of space of an architect. All of these were in perfect harmony in one person. Dali's life is truly a remarkable story of the intersection of art and science, madness and reason, reality and illusion. Perhaps it is essential to know this multifaceted aspect of his work in order to understand it more deeply. How was it? If you liked this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you next time.